last year I was in Hong Kong, and I was sitting in the back seat of this little taxi on my way to go see the world's largest sitting Buddha statue when I realized that I didn't have my phone with me, and that I had probably left it sitting on top of a toilet paper dispenser in the bathroom at the cab stand, which was half an hour away down the bottom of this mountain that I'd been driving up. And it was one of those really horrible, like, oh shit moments. And I turned to the guy I was sharing a cab with, who I didn't know. And when I told him what I'd done, he said, oh my God, we need to turn around. You need your phone. But I didn't need my phone. I was going to be flying home in just a few hours, and I had my wallet, and I had my passport, and I knew where the airport was. And I realized that I wanted to go see this Buddha more than I needed to go on some sort of wild goose chase trying to find my phone. So I told him, no, you know what, there's no guarantee it's still gonna be in the bathroom if we turn around. So let's go see the Buddha. And we did. And the cab dropped us off, and I said goodbye to the guy, and as I was wandering away, I had this moment where I realized that no one in my entire life had any idea where I was, and they couldn't find out. I mean, Apple thought I was taking a really long time in this bathroom stall 15 miles away, when actually I was staring up at this big Buddha. And so I decided right then to just forget about my phone. And I walked up the stairs to the base of the Buddha, and I listened to these monks chanting in this beautiful Buddhist temple. And I watched for a long time smoke rising up into the sky off these huge coils of burning incense. And then I did something that I don't often get to do, and that is I sat down on top of this mountain underneath this Buddha, and I just read my book. And I felt totally present and entirely alive and happy and whole. And when I got back to Portland and my regular busy life, where I own a business with my husband and I'm a mom and I do all the things, I could not stop thinking about that moment where I was reading under the Buddha. And I think the reason why is really simple. I had put my phone down, and I had picked my book up. And books matter. Phones, they make our life convenient, but books matter. When I was up on that hill reading, I couldn't FaceTime my husband or text my best friend or take a selfie with the Buddha and put it on Instagram. I could just sit down and read, and my book anchored me to the present moment. And it demanded my attention, and it gave me an excuse to just sit and do nothing but read. And I'm finding it harder and harder to carve out those moments to just sit and do nothing when I have this device in my hand that connects me to so much. When I lost my phone, I didn't just lose my ability to call someone, right? I lost access to my camera and my photo album and my music collection and my contact list and my email, like my bank. But I didn't lose access to my book because I had a real one in my bag. And this experience really gave me pause. And it's made me think that having access to so much information with just a swipe of my finger comes with a price. Because every time I search for something online or make a purchase with Apple Pay or like something on social media or even just drive around town, all that feeds this giant data machine that kind of knows more about me and what I want than I do. That's what it feels like sometimes. And it's this world where so much of what I see and read and buy is directed and curated by an algorithm instead of my whims and curiosity. So there's this writer I love, Jeanette Winterston. She's British, and the New York Times Book Review asked her, they said, "Do you think books serve a moral function?" And she really just had this perfect answer. She said, "Absolutely. Books aren't data. Books, more than ever, are agents of freedom from this loopy, data-driven nightmare that pretends we are free when we've never been more scrutinized." And when I read that, I thought, oh, books aren't data. Books contain information, but they don't retain information about me, especially if I'm reading a real physical book, the kind that I buy at a bookstore, and that I can flip through the pages of, and that I buy from a real person. And that experience for me of reading real books and buying them from a bookstore, it's not just kind of the opposite of buying an ebook online, it's kind of the antidote to big data. And when I read a real physical book, it kind of feels to me like this small act of resistance that I can take against sort of a digital incursion that's happening in every area of my life. And it feels to me like it gives me some small measure of intellectual independence that I can't quite get if I'm reading the exact same material on a Kindle. So when I joined EO, I was really excited to learn that my forum read a book every month because I love to read. It's been my lifelong passion. My grandmother owned a bookshop when I was a kid, and she was kind of my first example of a female small business owner. But I was then so disappointed to learn that we would only be reading business books. And I get it. I mean, EO is a business organization. It totally makes sense for forums to read business books. But I worry because I feel like there's this tendency as we grow older, and there seems to be like less time in every day to only read books that kind of count as edifying. And I'd like to make the case that reading widely is edifying. And by that, I mean reading sci-fi and graphic novels and translations from books that were written in other languages and memoir and biography. I read all of those kinds of books. And what I've learned from that is that any book that makes me laugh or challenges me or makes me pause and think or pisses me off is totally worth reading because it gives me a broad perspective. And as a business owner, I need a broad perspective. And I just can't get that if I only read business books, because most business books are written by people who look a lot like me, except that they're also usually written by men. And so, you know, one of the best examples I can think of for how reading widely can really impact your life in an unexpected way comes from my book club. So a couple years ago, we read a bunch of really depressing books in a row, and we were like, okay, we gotta lighten things up this month. And so my friend Sheila, she chose this book called The Secret Life of Violet Grant, which is definitely a borderline romance novel. And I was kind of embarrassed to buy it at Powell's, but I did, and I enjoyed it, but not as much as my friend Abby, who likes to read before bed. She got pregnant that month. Yeah, she did. She's got a 4-year-old now named Theo. And her husband suggested that maybe she should read more romance novels. And so I think that books, they really matter, even romance novels. So I know there's probably a few of you who are sitting out there and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it, books matter, but I'm busy. I don't have a lot of time to read. So I'd like to say, take it from me, having a chance to put your phone down and pick up a book is a good start. But I just wanted to share 3 quick hints for squeezing a lot of reading into your day that I use. And the first one is to read every day. So it's really hard to keep up momentum in a book if you pick it up and then you put it down and you don't look at it again for a week. So I read every day, and sometimes that means I read for 5 minutes, and sometimes I read for an hour. But by reading every day, I've developed a habit, and it's a good one. The second thing I'd like to say is if you don't like a book, and if I don't like a book, I put it down. So I like to apply that advice that entrepreneurs often get to fail fast to my reading. So if I don't like a book after 25 pages, I stop reading it, because there's so many other books out there that might resonate. I don't need to waste my time trying to forge ahead in something that I don't like. And finally, I always bring my book with me, because I'm always surprised how many opportunities there are every day where I can squeeze in 5 or 10 minutes of reading, but I have to have my book with me in order to make that happen. And so what I would ask for all of you is for you to consider to start bringing your book with you, because you never know the next time your car is going to get stuck behind a really slow freight train, or your friend's going to be late coming to lunch. But if you have your book with you, you'll be able to put your phone down and read. So, thank you.